In the deep corners of the galaxy, many races lived together. Some planets were full of peace, some had wars. But there was one name that brought fear to every planet. That name was Velrath, the monster girl. Everyone knew her story. Or at least they thought they did. She was said to be a giant creature, part alien, part machine, part beast. Her body was covered in dark black scales. Her eyes glowed red like burning fire. Her hands were like claws, sharp enough to cut steel. Legends said that she destroyed cities in one night, that she crushed armies without trying, that she could fly through space without any ship. Everywhere she went, people ran away. No one ever tried to speak to her. They just called her monster and ran. Because of that, the Galactic Union, a powerful government of many planets, they placed a huge bounty on her. Anyone who could kill Velrath would be rich forever, but no one even tried, because everyone who faced her never returned. Soon, her name became like a ghost story. Parents told their children to behave, or the monster girl would come. Leaders spoke of her when they wanted to scare their enemies. Even soldiers, who fought bravely in wars, refused to chase her. But one human did not believe all of this. His name was David Cade. He was not a soldier, nor a bounty hunter. He was just a researcher, a human who loved learning secrets of the galaxy. David heard the stories, but he didn't feel fear. Instead, he felt curiosity. He thought, why does she never speak? Why does she only appear and vanish? Most of all, he asked, what if the stories are wrong? Other humans laughed at him. You'll get yourself killed, they warned. But David didn't listen. He believed that every story had two sides. And maybe, just maybe, Velrath was not a monster after all. David studied every report, every sighting, every clue. He noticed something strange. Velrath only appeared on ruined planets, destroyed long before she came. She never attacked. First, only when threatened, and after each battle. She always disappeared to some dead, forgotten world. It made David wonder, is she hiding, or is she ... lonely? Finally, David decided to find out the truth himself. He traveled to Zerth Prime, an old planet full of broken cities. It was a dead place, with dark skies and endless ruins. But the last sighting of Velrath was here, as David walked through. The empty streets, the wind howled between the ruins. There were signs of past battles, burned walls, broken machines, but no sign of life. Then, in the middle of a ruined square, he saw her. She stood tall, her black-scaled body shining under the gray sky. Her red eyes watched the clouds, her long tail rested on the ground. She was alone. David's heart pounded. But not with fear, with awe. She looked like a living weapon, yet there was something else. Kind of sadness in how she stood, a loneliness that made her look small, despite her size. David took a step forward, his voice steady. Are you lonely? Velrath turned quickly, her claws raised. She growled, her eyes burning. Leave, she warned, or die. Any other person would have run, but David didn't move. Instead, he smiled gently. I don't want to fight, I want to know who you are. Velrath blinked, confused. No one had ever said that to her before. Usually they screamed or shot at her. What trick is this? She snarled. No trick, David replied. I just don't think you are the monster they say you are. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. The wind blew dust between them. Valroos's claws stayed raised, but she didn't strike something in David's eyes. She saw no fear, only curiosity and kindness. For the first time in her life, someone was not running. It's not screaming, not shooting, just asking, and that made her hesitate. The legend of the monster girl was known across the galaxy. But David Cade had just done something no one else had. He saw beyond the monster. He saw a person. And that changed everything. Most people only saw Velrath from a distance, a shadow in the sky, a blur between ruined cities. But David Cade, he stood just a few steps away from the galaxy's most feared creature. The air felt heavy, like it was watching. Velrath's red eyes burned brighter, her claws raised. She could have killed David in a second, but she didn't. David could feel her confusion. This was not the reaction she expected from a human. He stood calmly, hands by his side. No weapons, no armor, just his voice. I came here To talk, David said gently, not to fight. Velrath's growl was low, almost like a warning. You are a fool, she said. Everyone who comes close to me dies. But David didn't flinch. Maybe because no one tried to talk. To you first? His voice was steady, but his heart pounded. He knew one wrong word and he'd be dead. Velrath tilted her head, studying him. Her sharp tail curled behind her. Why? She asked finally. Why come to me? What do you want? David smiled slightly. Because the stories don't make sense, he replied. You only fight when attacked. You don't destroy for fun, you hide. So tell me who, are you really? Velrath was silent. No one had asked her that before. For so long, she was just the monster. No name, no story, no voice. But David had given her a choice. Speak or kill. And for some reason she didn't understand, she chose to speak. I don't remember being born, she said slowly. I woke up in a lab, cold, alone. They called me Project Velrath, made by hands I never saw, built to fight, to kill. But when I opened my eyes, everyone was gone. David listened. Carefully, this wasn't a monster's story. This was a tragedy, an experiment abandoned. A life without a beginning. Everywhere I went, she continued. They screamed, they attacked, so I fought back. They called me a monster. And I became one. Her voice shook for a moment, a sound like sadness trapped beneath her growls. David stepped closer. Slowly, you don't have to be what they say you are, he said softly. Velrath watched him with her glowing eyes. You are strange, she whispered. No fear in you, only pity. It's not pity, David said. It's understanding. They stood in silence. The wind carried dust around their feet, but between them, something unspoken grew. A connection, fragile but real. Then, suddenly, a sound echoed across. The ruins' engines, heavy and loud. David looked up. A group of Galactic Union patrol ships were approaching. They had tracked David's signal. And they came armed for war. Velrath's eyes narrowed. They've come to kill me, she said coldly. Her claws glowed faintly, her body tensed for battle. David's heart sank. If they attacked now, she would fight. And the cycle of fear and violence would continue. No, David said quickly. Don't fight yet. Let me talk to them. Velrath stared at him. You think they'll listen? David looked back at her. No, but I have to try. Above them, the ships circled. Weapons ready, and for the first time in history, humans stood between the galaxy's deadliest creature and the guns of the Union. David Cade had made his first encounter with the so-called monster, but this was only the beginning. Because behind every monster, there is a story waiting to be told. They called her a monster, but in that moment, as the ships circled overhead, she felt more like a cornered animal. Velrath watched the sky with burning eyes. Above her, weapons charged. Crosshairs locked on her heart. She could destroy them. All she knew that, but if she did, she would only prove their fears true. Then she looked at David, the human who stood in front of her, arms wide, protecting her. No one had ever done that before. His voice was strong. Don't shoot. She hasn't hurt anyone. But the soldiers didn't listen to them. David was just another fool, tricked by the beast. Velrath's claws twitched. Her tail coiled tight. She was ready to fight. But David turned to her. Please, don't. You told me you didn't ask to be made this way. If you fight now, they'll never understand. His words echoed in her mind. No one had ever cared what she wanted. But David did. With a heavy breath, Velrath stepped back into the shadows. Of the ruins, hiding herself from the soldiers' view, she trusted him. Why? She didn't know, but she did. David raised his hands high. I want to speak to your leader. He shouted to the sky. There was silence. Then a voice from the comes. This is Captain Rhizis of the Union forces. Step aside, human. We have orders to destroy the creature. David stood firm. No? She's not what you think. You've all been chasing a ghost story? Captain Rhizis laughed coldly. Are you saying the destruction on 12 planets is a story? The dead colonies? The missing fleets? David's heart raced, but he answered, then ask yourself, why is she always Alone? Why didn't she build an army? Why didn't she conquer planets? There was silence. Even the captain hesitated. Then David spoke again. She told me the truth. She was built by a forgotten race in a hidden lab. She woke up alone. No family, no guide, just fear. And when you all attacked her first, she defended herself. Is that a monster or a victim? The coms went quiet. The ships hovered. Uncertain, David took a breath and turned back to the ruins. Velroth, if you're still here, tell them. Let them hear your story. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then a shadow moved. Velroth stepped forward slowly. Her eyes glowing, but her claws lowered. She spoke, her voice deep but sad. My first memory is of cold metal and flashing lights. I woke up in a tank. Machines around me, but no people, no answers. The soldiers above listened. She continued. I wandered everywhere I went. I was met with screams and gunfire. Never asked to be made. I never asked to fight, but I was forced to survive. Her red eyes looked up at the sky. I don't even know what I am, monster, machine, weapon. I just wanted to exist. David stood by her side, his voice soft. She's not a threat. She's alone. The soldiers didn't lower their weapons, but they didn't fire either. Captain Ress's voice returned. We will report this too. The Union Council, if she leaves this planet, we will not hesitate to strike. The ships pulled away. Their engines roaring, and then they were gone. Velroth watched them vanish, then looked at David. Why did you do that? She asked, why protect me? David smiled gently, because I see you, not the monster they speak of, but the person hidden inside. Velroth's claws slowly relaxed, her tail settled. No one had ever called her a person for the first time. She felt seen, not as a legend, but as herself. And in that broken, ruined city, a strange friendship began to form. Between the galaxy's most feared creature and the human who dared to understand her. They called her a nightmare, but nightmares didn't shiver in the rain. On the fourth night after the soldiers left, David returned to the ruins of Zerth Prime. He brought food, light, and his stubborn curiosity. But what he found was not the monster people spoke of. It was a lonely figure, Velroth. Sitting on the cold stone steps, her black-scaled body soaked by heavy rain, her long tail lay still. Like a forgotten rope, her head hung low, and her eyes no longer glowed. David paused, watching her silently. Even the storm seemed quieter around her. He didn't see a creature of war. He saw someone who didn't know how to exist, someone waiting to be erased by the universe. Slowly, carefully. David stepped closer, his boots splashing in puddles. He spoke softly. You'll catch a cold if you sit like that. Velroth didn't move, didn't growl. She just whispered, I can't feel the cold, but her voice trembled anyway. David sat down beside her. The rain dripped from his hair. He said nothing for a while. Sometimes silence was louder than words. Then, without thinking, David reached out and placed his hand gently on her large claw. Her skin was cold, her scales rough. But under the surface, he felt a faint warmth, a living being beneath the armor. Velroth's eyes flickered. She stared at his hand. No one had ever touched her, ever. Her creators never touched her. The galaxy never dared. But here was a human, with soft skin and no fear, touching the hand of the so-called monster. Why are you doing this? She asked, her voice low, uncertain. David smiled gently. Because you look like you need someone. Even monsters deserve that. Velroth trembled slightly. She had been called many things, beast, weapon, nightmare, but never deserving of kindness. She tried to pull her hand away, but David held it firmly, not to trap her, to say, I'm here. She felt that more than the touch, that silent message. For a long time, they sat there. The rain washing over them, a human and a monster, side by side, no battles, no fear, just presence. Velroth finally whispered, Do you not fear death, human? David chuckled softly. I fear living a life where I never tried to understand. Is that scarier? Those words struck something inside her, a feeling she didn't have a name for. Not yet, David continued. You've never heard anyone who didn't attack first, I've read the records. I think you're tired of being hunted. Velrath nodded slowly. Yes, I don't want to run anymore, but I don't know what else to do. David looked up at the stormy sky. Then maybe we figure it out together? Velrath stared at him. This fragile human who stood against armies for her and now sat with her in the cold. For the first time, she didn't feel alone. The storm began to fade, the sky clearing. Just a little. Velrath looked at David's hand still resting on her claw. It was small, warm, fragile, but it held more strength than any weapon. It was trust, and trust, she realized, was something she had never been given until now. The galaxy was vast, but even in all that endless space, it could never truly hide forever. Velrath had known this truth all her life. But she had hoped just this once that the universe would forget her. She was wrong on the sixth day. While the broken ruins of Zerth Prime slept under gray skies, the ground began to tremble. A low hum filled the air. David woke first, sitting up. His instincts on fire, he looked at Velrath, who was already standing, eyes locked to the sky. Something was coming, and it wasn't peace. David rushed to the edge of the ruins and looked up. His heart sank. A fleet of Union hunter ships, black and silver, cutting through the clouds, 20 of them, each armed to the teeth. They were not here to talk. They were here to end a legend. Velrath. Claws flexed, her tail whipping the air. Her eyes glowed fiercely. She knew this dance too well. Attack, survive, run, repeat. But David stood in front of her again. Wait, don't, he begged. They'll only see what they want if you fight back. Velrath growled low. I have no choice if I don't. Fight, I die. If I fight, I become their monster again, above them. The hunter ships broadcast a cold, sharp voice. Velrath. Surrender immediately or be terminated. This is your only warning. David grabbed the communicator from his bag. This is David Cade, human researcher. You don't understand. She's not a threat unless you make her one. Silence, then the reply. Step aside, human. You have been warned. Velrath's body trembled. Her instinct screamed to fight. Her very design demanded war. But something inside her whispered louder, David. She looked at the small human, standing before her, willing to die for her, and for the first time. She didn't want to run or destroy. She wanted to be more, but the sky rained down fire. The hunter ships began their assault. Beams of energy shot toward them. David screamed, "No," and tried to shield her with his body, a foolish, fragile gesture, but it meant everything. Velrath reacted not with rage, but with purpose. She grabbed David and leaped, her powerful legs launching them deep into the ruins. Explosions shattered. The stone where they had stood, dust filled the air. David coughed, looking up into her glowing red eyes. You should have let me die, he rasped. Velrath shook her head. Not this time. No more running. But I'll protect you. She turned, facing the burning sky, her body lit with strange energy. Not anger, something deeper. Resolve. David grabbed her arm. Wait, there must be another way. Let me try again to contact them. Velrath paused, her tail twitching. She looked back at him. You believe they'll listen? David nodded. I have to believe. If not them, then the galaxy watching. Let me speak. Let me show them the truth. For a moment, the air was tense, then Velrath stepped back. She trusted him, even though it could mean her death. David activated his emergency broadcast, a direct channel to the Union's public network. His voice was shaky but clear. To anyone watching, this is David Cade. I stand with Velrath, not because I'm blind, but because I see her for what she is. Not a monster, but a life. Abandoned by her creators, made into a weapon without a choice. I ask you, what would you have done in her place? The message spread faster than the hunter ships could fire. Screens lit up across the galaxy. Millions of beings watched, some in shock, some in confusion, some in sympathy. Up in the sky, the Union command wavered. Should they kill or wait? The broadcast was now public. Every bullet fired was a statement. Velrath stood still, her eyes on David. No one had ever fought for her soul before. No matter how the galaxy decided, she would not let him stand alone. Because even a monster can have something to protect. Asterisk sometimes, a single voice can shake a galaxy. David Cade's broadcast was that voice, and now the whole galaxy was watching. From the smallest farming moon to the shining cities of the Union, core screens flickered alive, showing a fragile human standing beside the most feared being alive. But David wasn't holding a weapon, he was holding the truth. His words echoed. She didn't choose to be born a weapon. But we can choose to see her differently on the Union flagship above Zerth Prime. Captain Reeses watched the transmission. In silence, his orders were clear. Kill Velrath. Erase the threat. Something about the human's eyes, they weren't the eyes of a fool. They were the eyes of someone who had seen past the mask. Meanwhile, down on the planet Velrath, stood still, her claws flexed unconsciously, her body ready to defend, but inside, she felt something new. A strange spark of hope, she whispered, barely loud enough for David to hear. Why? Why risk your life for me? David turned to her, his voice steady. Because if we kill what we don't understand, then we'll stay blind forever. I'd rather die seeing you for who you are than live blind like the rest. Velrath had faced countless armies. Yet this one human's words made her heart tremble more than any war. In the skies above, a debate raged among Union command. Some officers demanded they fire, others hesitated, then a signal interrupted them all. A little girl from a distant world watching the broadcast live. Her innocent voice spread across the network. If she's really a monster, then why does she look so sad? The question was simple, but it broke through armor thicker than steel. All across the galaxy, people began to question the stories they'd believed. Was Velrath truly a beast? Or a victim trapped in a war she never started? Captain Rices listened, his finger hovering over the command to fire, but he didn't press it. Instead, he ordered, "Hold your fire. We wait. The Council must see this." Back on Zerth Prime, David's communicator buzzed. A new message from the Union Council itself. They had seen enough. They wanted to talk. David looked at Velrath, his face filled with relief. They want to negotiate. You won't have to run anymore, Velrath. Claws slowly lowered, her shoulders relaxed, but her eyes stayed on David. You did this, she said softly. You gave me a voice. No one's ever done that for me. David smiled, and you gave me something too. What? She asked a friend, he replied. The word struck her deeply. Friend. She had no memory of ever hearing that word for herself. Until now, the sky began to clear. The hunter ships retreated slightly. Ally no longer hunters, but watchers. Velrath sat down. The ground trembling slightly under her weight, she looked at her own hands. Claws. For the first time, she didn't hate them. Because if a human could see beyond them, maybe she could too. David sat beside her, both of them staring at the breaking sky together, two beings who should have been enemies, but chose instead to understand. Somewhere deep in the stars, the galaxy was changing, because one human made a choice to see the person, not the monster, and that made all the difference. They called her a monster, but the galaxy had never heard her speak until now. Days later, a grand broadcast was arranged. It was not from a palace, not from a shining space station, but from the broken ruins of Zerth Prime, where a human and a legend sat side by side. Velrath stood in front of the cameras, her dark scales catching the weak sunlight. Her red eyes didn't glow with rage now. They held something deeper fear. Not of death, but of being heard. What if no one believed? Her. David stood nearby, giving her a small nod, a simple message. You are not alone. Velrath took a breath. Her voice, heavy but clear, echoed across the galaxy. I was made, not born. I was built to be a weapon. But when I woke, I found no master. No guide, only fear. She paused, her claws trembling. I tried to understand the worlds I walked. But everywhere I went, I was attacked, hunted. I became what they said I was, a monster, because I thought that was all I could be. Her voice cracked. But then, a human stood before me, without guns, without fear. He touched my hand, and for the first time, I wasn't a weapon. I was. Millions watched in silence, across screens and holograms. Alien children asked their parents, "Is she really bad?" An old soldier whispered to himself. "Maybe we were wrong," Velroth continued. "I don't want to run. I don't want to fight, I just want to live. To find out who I really am? Is that too much to ask?" The broadcast ended, but her words stayed. They echoed in hearts that had only known fear. Now they knew her pain. The Union Council made its decision. Velrath was granted a truce, not a prisoner, not a threat, but a person. Under protection, David remained with her, teaching her about the galaxy, about peace, about friendship. She learned how to smile not with her mouth, but with her eyes. One evening, as the two watched the stars, Velrath asked softly, "Why did you really help me, David, when you could have walked away?" David smiled, "Because no one deserves to live unloved, not even a so-called monster." Velrath looked at her hands again, once seen as claws made for killing, but now they were hands that had been held. She was no longer just Velrath, the monster. She was Velrath, the survivor, the friend. And maybe sometimes, something even more. Because sometimes, all it takes is one human brave enough to touch the monster, to reveal the person inside. And the galaxy never forgot that lesson.